Like many other anime fans, my introduction to the medium was through the big action titles like Dragon Ball Z and Naruto. And from there, I expanded to other genres and styles as I grew to learn more about this medium. But, again, like many fans, I had a terrible time getting into slice of life. I just couldn't wrap my head around it. These characters aren't doing anything. They're not blowing something up, they're not doing a comedy routine. What's the point of just watching someone do something I could do on my own? Eventually, I got over my stupidly flawed bias against this genre through some of its light comedy variants, but it took me a very long time to appreciate an anime that's just straight up slice of life, or even more towards that extreme, Iyashikei. In fact, even though I've already made a video on it, I wouldn't say that I really got the appeal of Iyashikei until a couple days ago when I finally watched Yokohama Shopping Log. But I'm gonna need to set the stage a bit to explain how this happened. As many of you probably know, I recently put out my most successful video of all time, well above what I expected, and it's a joy that I can't even begin to express in words. However, that success also came with a price. What the fuck do I follow that up with? Anything I make now is going to look like a step down, so the pressure to put out something really solid was quite intense. To make matters worse, there are now anywhere between 3 to 5 times more people in my house at a given time than there were for the past 6 months. My grandma's in town until mid-September, my parents' house is being remodeled so they were staying over a lot, and my sister is probably moving in with me. Also, my bedroom is in the living room, which is also my workspace. This is not a large house. Going from total silence that gives me laser focus to work on videos to I can't even write a page of a script per day because there's so much noise and distraction and social obligation is unbelievably stressful and depressing. So by this point, it's been over 2 weeks since my Sun and Moon video went live. I've already spent a week on this Magi script that's still not even finished yet, and I've also been working every single day at my food service job because they like me there and I like money. The first Saturday of August, I worked from 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. and came home to a house filled with drunken middle-aged people who simply would not shut up. The next morning, my manager woke me up and said she needed me for an emergency delivery, so I did that because, again, I like money. When I came home after that, the house was filled again and they were watching some kind of dumb game show or the news at noon or whatever, and I only had about 2 hours before my next shift started. My mind was nearing its breaking point and I felt like I was about to snap. And then, for some reason, I remembered that I had downloaded Yokohama Shopping Log Quiet Country Cafe a couple weeks ago and still hadn't gotten around to watching it. I figured, what the hell, the worst it could do at this point was be totally boring, so I opened up the video and prepared for whatever would come. And then I just sat there for a half hour, allowing this show to fully engulf me and relieve almost all of my stress. Which is really odd in hindsight because the actual plot of the episode I watched isn't exactly soothing or relaxing on paper. I mean, by the end of the episode, the main character's cafe has been destroyed by a typhoon. So why did I find it so relaxing? The answer to that is that this episode was one of the most genuine pieces of storytelling I've ever seen. And by that I mean that it doesn't try to eliminate the negative and stressful aspects of life from its story. There are no overly saccharine or sappy moments. It doesn't try to falsely idealize anything that shouldn't be. Instead, this episode seems to make an attempt at finding serenity and calm despite those stressful aspects, and the show's post-apocalyptic setting further enhances this mindset. There is no indication that this society is going to return to normal anytime soon, but none of the characters seem to be that concerned about it. They just go about their daily lives as they normally would in their situation, and live as comfortably as they possibly can. Despite living in non-idealistic circumstances and still having to deal with the hardships that come with a worldwide disaster, these characters are mostly at peace. Yes, they have moments where they are emotionally troubled. Alpha is noticeably worried about the cafe when she takes shelter in a nearby gas station. When the storm has subsided, she tells the gas station owner that she was on the verge of tears just before he arrived after discovering that her cafe was destroyed by the typhoon. And yet, here she is, seemingly at peace with the situation. And sometime later, she's able to open up at least part of the cafe to her customers and continue on mostly unimpeded by the disaster. I find the way that I wrote those last two lines to be almost eerily prophetic considering the current debacle that's going on with my channel. And coming back to this episode again so that I can edit this video, I can undoubtedly say that I appreciate this scene immensely more. Seeing someone who can stand back up again after losing practically everything is exactly what I needed right now. There is never an excess of stress on the characters in this show, but it also doesn't act as if this stress doesn't exist. And that, along with its stellar use of pastel colors, methodical cinematography, and a soothing acoustic guitar soundtrack, further reinforces this idea of being in harmony with the imperfect system that you live in. And I highly recommend Pause and Select's video discussing this particular topic in more detail. And yeah, this mindset kinda worked for me. I feel way less stressed after bringing myself back around to the shit's fucked, let's move on from there philosophy. Granted, in the short term, all this really meant was that I spent a couple days agonizing over this script instead of the other one, but the decompression really was helpful. I honestly can't think of another time in my life where I needed Iyashikei more than I did when I watched this episode of Yokohama to provide me with this specific type of escapism. Now, as should be obvious, your mileage will vary on how you interpret this series, as well as Iyashikei in general. Maybe you'll never find yourself in a position stressful enough to warrant this kind of relief. Or maybe you're so stressed out constantly that some nearly forgotten OVA from the early 2000s just won't cut it. That's all up to you to figure out. As for me, I think I've had about enough relaxation, so it's time to get back to work. Thank you all so much for watching. This has easily been one of the most stressful months of my entire life, and I really just needed to take a bit of a decompression with this video just so I can get over it. And thank you all so much for sticking with me through this whole YouTube thing. It really means a lot that you're still here. And feel free to share your own Iyashikei experiences in the comments below. Special thanks to Jan Regalski, Rourke Tanjoin, Christine Seibert, Tim Johnson, Call Me Catlord, and all my other patrons for their generous support. My name is Ember, and I'll see you next time.